Okay. We'll say our blessing, and then I have just an announcement before we start. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. I just want to announce that today's class was sponsored by Penina in memory of her grandfather, whose yortzeit is now Hirsch ben Avraham, and his neshama should have an aliyah for all the Torah that we are learning together, and hopefully all the positive impact that comes from the Torah, as well as from Penina of your sponsoring and your commitment and your devotion to your grandfather. And that should be a merit for his neshama as well. It's a merit to have somebody do something in your merit. So that in and of itself is wonderful. So yasher koach. And in the future, if anybody would like to do that, I can give you the information to go to my page on the Jewish Experience website. And if you scroll down, it's theje.com/Ellyn. Ellyn, and then at the end you can scroll down to make a contribution, and it can be any amount to pay for the class, to sponsor it for the time, for a week, a month, whatever, for the year. Feel free, whatever you'd like to do would be lovely. So thank you very much, Penina, for doing that for us. All right, this week's parsha is the double parsha of Matot and Maseh, and we will conclude the book of Bamidbar. And the book of Bamidbar then therefore will be a Shabbat Chazak, Shabbos of strength, as we conclude Bamidbar and begin the final book of Torah, the Sefer of Devarim, of Deuteronomy, which will take us, hard to believe, to the end of, until Simchas Torah, which is pretty wild. So right now, as you know, we're in the 3 weeks. And these parshas are always read during the three weeks between the 17th of Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, the destruction of the temple. These 3 weeks are called Bein HaMitzarim, the time when we are within the narrow straits, and we'll be discussing that more next week. So just to give you a heads up, we will have class next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we'll have class, but the following Wednesday on the 26th, we will not, because for me, it will already be Erev Tisha B'Av. So, because it'll be 8 o'clock at night for me. So the 26th, we will not have class. So the 19th will be our last class for the month of July. And then also, I'm not sure if I'll be able to teach on August 2nd. I will keep you posted about that. But for sure, we will, Bezrat Hashem, God willing, we will meet next week as well. So look forward to that. Okay, so this week of Matot and Maseh, what are we talking about? So I had written in the Jewish Experience email for the women that the parsha of Maseh is one of my favorites, and a specific section of it which I want to talk about a little bit. We have several ideas to talk about and hopefully put all together. But the one I want to start with first is a listing of all of the journeys of the Jewish people. So it starts off on page 919, if you are in the Stone Chumash, or chapter 33, verse 1. And it starts out, that's why it's the name of the parsha, and it says, Eile Mas'eh B'nai Yisrael. These are the journeys of B'nai Yisrael that they went through during the 40 years. Again, this section of Torah is now, we're in the 40th year. We're getting close to the book of Devarim, which is the final month of Moshe's life. So we are coming to the very, very end. And the parsha will end saying, that where things are is Moshe is standing with B'nai Yisrael, and that he spoke to them at the Jordan River on the other side, near Jericho. So looking at my apartment is where he was standing. So I have to, I know you know this and I keep saying this, but it'd be like saying, for those who are from Denver, if you would say and Moses was standing on Monaco and Alameda looking towards Crestmore Downs, it'd be like, okay, that exists. That's a real place. This isn't like a made up story of, these are the fables of the Jewish people. It's no, I go there every single day. So this is a real place. So it's just much more there when I can look out my window and actually see it. I really do half expect. When people say, how is it looking at Jericho and Jordan, the lights? I'm like, you know what? In my mind, I just see Joshua and I just see Moshe with the Jewish people. That's what I see when I look out there. Like in the future, everything's going to be fine. We're not there yet, but in the future it'll be fine. So I'm just looking at it with those eyes. Okay, so here are the journeys that we have, and the journeys that they have, they go through a whole summary, and you can just kind of follow along here. Hold on one second. Let me just finish reading everybody. They go through a summary of all of the different places, and some of the places says that they weren't, it doesn't say what happened there. Only some of the places does it mention what happened. Otherwise, it just seems to be a litany. And the way they do it is a little bit awkward. So let's take, for example, let's go down to verse 10. They journeyed from Elim and encamped by the Sea of Reeds. They journeyed from the Sea of Reeds and encamped in the wilderness of Sin. They journeyed from the wilderness of Sin and encamped in Dovka. It's like, if you were writing an English paper, you would say you're just trying to get a lot of words, you're trying to up your word count in your paper, because why are you writing it like that? First of all, it doesn't seem like it's adding any information. It sounds like you're at someone's house and they're recounting all the places they went to on their vacation. We went to here and then we went to there. Well, then we left there and we went to here. And then we went here and we left to there. It's like, this is not interesting. So it's like, why is it listed like this? So the journeying, it says the journey is the main point. It's not so much the destination as the journey, because we know the Torah is going to close before the Jewish people ever get into the land of Israel. And then we're going to rewind the Torah and start all over again with Bereshit. So what's the point of the Torah? The point of the Torah and the point of our lives is the journey. We do not have control over the destination. We only have control over what we do on the journey as we're going and at each encampment along the way. The encampments along the way, there were 42 encampments. And I just read tonight from Rabbi Moshe Wolfson, but I did not see a quote, a source for it. He said that there were 42, but 7 of the places they actually were at twice, that they went back and they were there 2 times. So if there were 7 that were repeated and 42 that were just there, what does that bring our total to of 42 plus 7? Our magical number of 49. Okay, 49 encampments. Now, 49 encampments, I have to say, when you saw 42 before, it's like, that's not really a number. That's not like one of our numbers. It seems like it's missing something. It's 7 times 6, which isn't really anything, but to have 7 times 7, 49, then we know we're on the verge of something. So that their encampments were really, so we're going to use that number 49 encampments in order to reach a certain level, just like when we take the 49 days between Pesach and Shavuot, it makes a lot more sense that there would be 49 encampments for the Jewish people before they cross over into the land of Israel, which would be the equivalent of reaching the 50th level. The 50th level, which we know is the highest level, it's like the 50th day is Shavuot, the 50th year is the Jubilee year, and reaching the 50th encampment would be crossing over the Jordan and entering in the land of Israel. That would be the 50th level. So each of those journeys says, and this is what our life is as well, that our life is a journey, which we know, and we have encampments along the way. And knowing when we are at an encampment, knowing when we are at a place, a situation, and these encampments were mostly times of challenge, where the Jewish people were supposed to be learning something, taking in some sort of insight, wisdom, some successfully, some unsuccessfully. But that was the point, is to be in the place to learn what it is they were supposed to learn at that time. When it was complete, it was like, okay, now it's time to go into the land of Israel. Now you can cross over and get to the 50th level. So it says those were the journeys. Now, as we said, some of these journeys, the places were places where the Jewish people made terrible mistakes, like the sin of the golden calf and the sin of the spies. And that's part of the journey too. So this was not like how you would write your resume where you try to make everything sound great. I worked at this place and this place and this place, but imagine that you had been fired several times along the way and you had to kind of like make it sound good. Well, I decided to leave to pursue other opportunities, which means they canned me. So like, what does that mean? So it's like, and I decided to pursue other opportunities. So even though it might have been painful, it might have been difficult, it might have been somewhat, I won't say punitive, but something where something negative happened, it's still part of the journey. So what's very interesting is that there is a special melody that is used to sing this journey. And the melody is similar to the melody that is used for this, that we use when we cross the sea, the splitting of the sea, which was like the most amazing, profound experience. So you think, well, of course there would be a special melody for that because that was amazing. But this comes to say, yes, that's openly amazing, but guess what else is amazing? Your journey through your life at each of your encampments. So there is a quote, this is in Tehillim, in Psalms, that says, let me just find it here, I wrote it down. It says, it's Tehillim number 101, verse 1, and it says, kindness and judgment I sing. It's like, I sing to Hashem, and I thank Hashem when I perceive something that is kind, or whether I perceive God's judgment. Is it coming from a place of chesed, or it's coming from a place of din? But I experience it as that it's all beneficial, and I'm thanking Hashem for it. So the Jewish people, it's not that the good places have a happy melody, and then the places where they messed up are like sung in like Tisha B'Av music. It's all is happy. So it says that the ability to perceive the journey as all being good, meaning beneficial, not pleasurable, but beneficial, is the gift of being able to sing this section of Masai, of being able to look back. Now, the challenge is that it's mostly in retrospect that we're able to often see the difficult times for what we gained from them, even if it was painful. That was like, I learned this about myself. I had this experience. I grew in this way. I didn't know. It's a mistake I won't make again, or I made it again, but now I'm not making it a third time. Whatever it might be, whatever the experience is, that it's all part of the journey. So when they sing this, I love this because sometimes the music doesn't seem to fit what was happening, but it's saying, no, that's because you're looking at it from too narrow of a perspective rather than seeing it from a higher perspective. So what perspective are we seeing it at? From the 49th. This is Moshe looking back and recounting this. This isn't as it was happening. So when we look back, it's like, oh, when I look back, I can see it. So Moshe, I mean, he was a Navi, he was a prophet. So prophet means not like I can see the future, I can tell the future. It means clarity of vision. So the clarity of vision that he had, he was able to put this in a framework for the Jewish people so that in fact, it becomes a blessing to them. It's like, I'm going to tell you what your experience was, including the rebuke that's implied in a lot of it, but I want you to see it as a whole so you get the message that the whole thing was a journey. And not, there's all sorts of jokes that people say, why were the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years? Because Moshe wouldn't ask for directions, ha, ha, ha. It's like, they weren't wandering. That was how they experienced it. But that was like kids in school who don't realize that the teacher has a curriculum. And so you ask them each day, what did they do in school? And what do most kids say? Nothing, nothing. Or we had recess. It was like, well, that probably is not exactly what was going on in your classroom. There was a curriculum. So Hashem had a curriculum for the Jewish people and things that they needed to experience and a path that they needed to go on. And now Moshe is telling them, this was the path, this was the curriculum. And I'm getting ready to leave you because he already knows he's going to, and they know he's going to. So you need to understand what it was you experienced, how to experience your own life. Now, even more than that, we need to understand our own lives. It's very nice if we can understand the Jewish people from back then's lives. The greater thing is for us to understand our own lives and to realize that the pattern is the same for each and every one of us and for the Jewish people as a whole. So this is why this is one of my favorite sections of the Torah from the parsha of Maseh. Okay, now the next thing I want to talk about is that there is going to be a reiteration here of the daughters of Tzlafchad. So in last week's parsha, we had the daughters of Tzlafchad. And can anybody kind of summarize what the daughters of Tzlafchad said to Moshe and what the answer was? If anybody wants to unmute or raise your hand and say if anyone feels brave. Anybody remember what that? The daughters of Tzlafchad? Okay, then I'll tell you. Yes, Renee.
Sorry, I'm a little late. Just because my phone's not working or my computer.
Okay.
Is I hopefully I recall this right. So the father or the head leader of the tribe passed away. So
their father.
Didn't have their father. Okay. So they weren't like, according to like the custom at the time, there wasn't a man to take the land. So they asked if the daughters can have their land and be split it up and let the inheritance go through the daughters.
Correct. Thank you very much. Yes. Okay. And so what they said, the Tzlafchad and the daughters said, why should we miss out on the inheritance of the land of Israel? So this wasn't just like, oh, the girls want to inherit. This was, first of all, a much, much deeper understanding. First of all, Tzlafchad, what tribe was he from? Let's go back to the original part where it's discussed in last week's parsha to see what they exactly said. Let's go back to page 887. 887 is in the parsha of Pinchas, and let's take a look. Page 887, which is chapter 27, verse 6. Verse 1. Chapter 27, verse 1. The daughters of Tzlafchad, son of Hefer, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, of the family of Manasseh, son of Joseph, drew near. Now, we know that most people are identified purely by, one generation's name, sometimes by two generations' name in order to make a point to bring down something. But look at what it says. Who were the daughters of Tzlafchad? They were from the son of Hefer, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, son of Manasseh. And then the Torah goes on to specifically say, not some random Manasseh, the Manasseh, the son of Joseph. It says, why does that make a difference? It says, Joseph had an incredible love of the land of Israel. Why? Because he was kidnapped and sold and sent into exile and never got to return. So someone who lives someplace, they take it for granted, they get used to it. It says Joseph longed to be reunited with the land of Israel. And we know what he said before he died. He tells his brothers, you have to carry my bones and take them out of this place and bring them to the land of Israel. And in fact, they do. Moshe carries them and they take them into the land of Israel, and he's buried in Shechem. That's where Joseph's tomb, which unfortunately the Arabs are always attacking and burning down and turning into a mosque, but that's where Joseph is buried. It says this love of the land of Israel as Joseph's source, like I lost this. It says that from the tribe of Manasseh, that the daughters of Tzlafchad had a special connection of channeling Joseph's love of the land of Israel, and for them their family to not have an inheritance there was like beyond their comprehension. It can't be that our father's line is not going to be reunited with the land of Israel. And it wasn't just one daughter, but all 5 of Tzlafchad's daughters. So they go to Moshe and they present their case. So interestingly, in the commentary in the Midrash, I'm not sure exactly where else, this is, what did they say to Moshe? They said, we have a connection to the land of Israel. Because it says the root of the Jewish people is the land of Israel. It's not like, oh, I have a place for the Jewish people to live. It's the land of Israel. It's like, no, that is our source. So being reunited with the land of Israel, it says, is the deepest desire of every Jewish person, whether they're able to do it or not, that is their deepest source. They say to Moshe, either we are able to connect to the land of Israel and inherit so that we have a portion, or our mother, who is a widow, should be able to marry one of our father's brothers in Yibum and have a child, a son who will inherit. So it says, like, what is that even talking about? It says, what does Yibum? Yibum, if you remember, is when a man dies and he doesn't have any children, not sons or daughters, he doesn't have any children. The wife marries his brother or his closest relative in order to have a child. What is the purpose of this child? It says the purpose of the child is to reincarnate the neshama of the deceased husband. So it's a reincarnation issue. We're going to reincarnate our father. So either mom marries somebody else and brings a child in who will inherit. So they weren't so much like we have to be the ones to inherit. It could have been somebody else, but it had to be through their father to reincarnate that. Moshe is like, this concept, like your question and the place that the daughters of Zelophehad were coming from, as Renee said, they're the custom of the time. So now Torah does not go according to the custom of the time. The laws of Torah are the laws of Torah. But the point that they raise, what did Moshe realize? Because what happens when they say this? Moses brought the claim before Hashem. Why didn't Moshe know the answer? Why didn't Moshe know the answer? So this is just wild. If you have the Chumash in front of you, take a look at the Hebrew side. And where you want to look is kind of directly across. It's like where the paragraph ends in Hebrew. Do you see that? And it says, Vayakrev Moshe et Mishpatan. Do you see that? Moshe brought close the Mishpatan, the claim before God. Do you see that? And do you notice that there's an elongated nun? Do you see that big nun? Tell me if you see that. Just nod your head if you're seeing that in your Chumash. You seeing it? Okay. It says, why is that nun elongated? So the beautiful commentary on this is saying that it should be read as et mishpat, the judgment of or the claim of the letter nun. What does that mean? It says the letter nun is equal to what's the gematria of nun is 50. Their claim was coming from the level of 50th. What's the level of 50th? It says that is level, it's called the 50 gates of understanding, which are the 50 gates of Bina, intuitive understanding. Now, some of you might recognize that the quality of Bina, this intuitive, deep understanding, is considered to be especially embedded in the neshamas of women. It says they were bringing a claim that was not coming from the realm of Chachma, of logic. Now we're retroactively looking at this from American legal system, blah, 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 and saying, well, of course it made sense, it's logical. It wasn't logical. It really wasn't logical because what they were saying was going to kind of could cause a big problem. It wasn't from the realm of logic. It was from the level of intuitive, deep understanding. It says, and Moshe, not because he was deficient, Moshe as a lawgiver, he needed to operate in the realm of logic, of Chachma. So it's like, this is not my pay grade. This is something that belongs to the realm of Hashem. This is at the 50th level. I'm taking the claim to Hashem. Hashem will answer. And Hashem says they speak correctly. And you will do exactly what they say. So it wasn't a shortcoming on Moshe's part. It would be like a judge being responsive to, I don't know, an emotional claim. And I'm not saying emotion is bad. I'm saying that's not the purview. You have to have a case. You have to have precedent. It has to be a legal structure. This was not really within that framework. This was outside of that. This was a mishpat in the nun category. This was in the 50th. The 50th is always above and beyond the natural framework. It says, and Zelophehad's daughters, that's where they were coming from. They were coming from that place of 50. They were coming from that place of transcendence. Okay, so it shines a completely different light on the whole thing of where they were coming from, because that's what they were really saying, is that this needs to operate from a different framework. And they didn't do it in a belligerent way. You know, they didn't have a protest. They didn't burn anything. They didn't, you know, light tires on fire. They just went to Moshe with their claim, and then he presented it to Hashem and answers them. So that's Zelophehad's daughters. So now we see that Zelophehad's daughters are dealing with things like in this other realm here. And we also see that we already had a hint to the 49 in Maseh, as the Jewish people are getting ready to go into the land of Israel. That's also the 49 getting ready to cross into the 50th. Anytime we're talking about this 50th realm, we're talking about when things get to their most complete level and we're getting ready to go into transcendence, getting ready to go into transcendence. And now we're going to talk about the third example, which seems really disconnected, which has to do with the tribes of Reuven, Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh. So this might sound familiar to you, but if you want to turn to Gad and Reuven, page 925. 925, we see that oh wait, hold a second. That's not right. I take that back. 911. Let's start at the beginning of the story. Page 911. 911 is when some other people come to Moshe with another request. And what's the request here? The request of Reuven and Gad. And what does he say? Hold on one second. I just clicked on something I didn't want to click on. Okay. Reuven and Gad. Chapter 32, verse 1. The children of Reuben and the children of Gad had abundant livestock, very great. They saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, and behold, it was a place for livestock. They came and said to Moshe, to Eleazar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Verse 4, the land that Hashem smote before the assembly of Israel, it's a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. Therefore, they said, verse 5, if we have found favor in your eyes, let this land be given to your servants as a heritage. Do not bring us across the Jordan. They wanted to settle on the other side of the Jordan, not in the land of Israel. Moshe completely freaks out, basically saying, like, what are you doing? Not crossing in. You're going to demoralize the Jewish people who are crossing in to fight the enemies. We're supposed to be conquering the land. There's the 7 Canaanite nations that are there, and you are going to be over here on this other side. And they say, no, no, no. We're going to build pens for our livestock and cities for our houses for our children, and we'll be the first ones over, and we won't come back until the land is conquered. It's like, this is just a strange thing. So first of all, it's a little weird to say the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had abundant livestock, very great. It's like, okay, they had a lot of livestock. It says, what does that mean? And it was a place for livestock. What was the problem? You know, all the accusations against Israel that we are whatever colonizers, you know, we're taking other people's land, etc. Like, okay, so what's the big deal? They would have just had land on the other side of the Jordan too. So a little bit of land on the other side of Jordan plus the land on this side. That's okay. Moshe's like, no, it's not. You are supposed to be on the other side of the Jordan. You're supposed to be on this side in the land of Israel, not on the other side. What was the big deal? What were they asking for? And what was this focus on their livestock? And why they get so carried away with like how great it was and how wonderful it was. So here's a section of Torah that I am pretty sure that no one ever delves into or looks at it for more than like an instant and your eyes completely glaze over because we don't even know what it's talking about, is when we go all the way back to God's promise to Abraham about the land that he was going to have. Let's go back and take a look at that. Keep your place here and turn back to page 69. Page 69, this is in Bereshit. We're going back to the very beginning. And when we see this, we're going to see something interesting. Page 69, chapter 15, verses 18, and we're going to look at 18 through 21. What does it say here? This is when God is making a covenant with Abraham. And verse 18, on that day, Hashem made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your descendants, I have given this land, meaning the land of Israel, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates River. Now, I'm going to say a series of names, and I just want you to count them, okay? We have I can't even pronounce all of them. The Kenite, the Kenizzite, the Cadmonite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Rephaim, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Girgashite, and the Jebusite. How many are there? 10 names of 10 nations. How many of those nations do the Jewish people actually end up conquering that are in the land of Israel? 7. There are 7 nations in the land of Israel. And where are the other 3? Outside the land of Israel on the other side of the Jordan. What was plan A or the ultimate plan for the Jewish people? Don't tell this to the United Nations at all. It's not just the land of Israel. That was part 1. Part 2 was the other side of the Jordan, because there's really 10 nations, not 7. But there was an order, and the order was the 7 first within the land of Israel. And it was only after that was all situated and functioning as it should, that then the other 3 would be added in. Whose land is that? Who does that belong to? It says that land belongs to the Edomites, the Moabites, and the Ammonites. And that's the land on the other side. So what was Moshe's problem about God and Reuven wanting to be on the other side? Not that it was like, why you want to be on the other side? It was like the timing. First the 7 and then the 3. Why is that? When else do we see a division of 7 and then 3? I'll take you back to the parshas that have, well, let me just take you back to anything having to do with the 10 sfirot. Okay, we have 10 sfirot. What do we always do? We always focus on what are called the lower 7. When we're counting Sfirat HaOmer, we start with Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, Malchut, 7. We don't touch the top 3, Chachma, Bina, and Da'at. We don't touch those. When we have the Ushpizin, when we have the guests during Sukkot for each of the 7 days, we are on the lower 7. When we had the 10 plagues in Egypt, we have 2 different parshas that address the plagues, the first 7 and the final 3. Everything goes 7 and then 3. The 7 are the ones that represent like the 7 days of the week. Everything 7 has to do with the process that needs to be gone through first. And then you add the 3, and that takes it to the top. We even have in Tehillim. In Tehillim, it talks about in the future, the musical instrument is not going to be like how we have our music now, where there are basically 7 notes, even though it's called an octave. It's really a repetition of, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do is repeated, so it's really 7 notes. In the future, the instrument is going to have 10 strings. Why 10 strings and not 7? Because it represents the ultimate completion when everything is done. What Moshe was saying is like, you are premature. You can't have the 3 nations on the other side before we have the 7. You have to be participating in the 7, and then you can have the 3. This was the claim. It says, what else is the 7 and the 3? The period of time that we are in now. Once we hit Tisha B'Av, we are going to have 7 weeks. There'll be 7 haftorahs of consolation, taking us from Tisha B'Av to Rosh Hashanah. In our world now, we're in the realm of 7. But in the future, what are we going to have? the 3 weeks from the 17th of Tammuz until Tisha B'Av are going to be transformed into Yontifs. And then we're going to have, you thought you were busy, we've said this before, you thought you were busy between the high holidays starting with Rosh Hashanah, just you wait. It's going to start on the 17th of Tammuz and go all the way through to the next start of Rosh Hashanah. It's going to go all the way through. We're going to have 10 weeks of consolation, 10 weeks of celebrating, and then we're going to go into the holidays. And that represents the ultimate place. This was Moshe's objection. You're premature. And that's why you're going to demoralize the Jewish people, because you're going to try to cap off the top, do the extra credit before you did the assignment. And that's why they then say, no, we're going to help with the main assignment, and then we'll come back and be in this other land. And we already have the cattle. This is a sign to us that we're meant to be here. We're supposed to be here. It's not as premature as you think. So Moshe agrees. And so they're able to go, and they do in fact, and I think they're gone like for 14 years, some like incredible amount of time that they're gone. So a lot of these things about how things are happening are about the timing of it. First the 7, then the 3. We're in the 7 weeks of consolation, but soon we're going to have these 3 weeks added on, and it will all be Yontif. We're going to have the 49, and then we'll have the 50. You can't get to 50 like counting the Omer. You can't get to Shavuos without counting the 49 days. That's the whole point. You cannot get there without going on the steps through the process. You can't get to the end without going through the 49 journeys. If you wanted to say like, well, all I want to do is get through my life, with no cuts, no bruises, no bangs, no difficulties, no challenges. My story is going to be, I was born, I came, I saw, I conquered. That's it. It's like, first of all, it's the shortest book ever written, and nobody is going to read it. So that's not anybody's journey. It's not anybody's journey. Instead of being upset that that's not the journey, it's like, we're supposed to sing about that. We're supposed to use the same melody we did for the most amazing miracle that we've ever witnessed, which was the splitting of the sea. But I'm supposed to see my own life like that? It's like, that seems really challenging. But in retrospect, Moshe tells the Jewish people, you can see it that way. That's how I'm seeing it that way. I'm giving you this as my bracha before I leave you. You need to be able to see your life this way and the challenges that you're going to come across. So Reuven and Gad and half of Manasseh, they're the ones who take this claim. So now you could say, did it just happen that why did they have so many sheep? How come they had such a large amount of cattle? Why wasn't it some other tribe? Just like, okay, well, I just thought that they did. So there was a reason that it was those tribes. So what is the reason? It says that each of those people had some sort of claim on being first, of wanting to be like at the top. Because you could say, even though we talk about the 7 lower sfirot and the top 3, the truth is the top 3 theoretically should come first, right? If you're looking at it in the mystical tree of life, the top 3 come first. It seems a little strange that we work on the lower 7 and then do the top 3. The top 3 really represent what should be first, ultimately. So how is that? Who is Reuven? Reuven is Jacob's firstborn. He's the firstborn of Jacob. He loses all of his rights because of a mistake he made, but he eventually will be redeemed. Gad, the tribe of Gad, people, that's like one of the tribes when people are naming the tribes, like of the 7 dwarves, like everyone always leaves out Gad. Nobody can even remember that. Who is Gad? It says Eliyahu Hanavi. Elijah the prophet is from the tribe of Gad. Okay, Elijah the prophet is from the tribe of Gad. He wanted to be like, I want to be in the future when Mashiach comes. I want to be on this land. I want to be like at the front gate. I want to be at the top. And Manasseh, who's Manasseh? Joseph's firstborn. Joseph's firstborn is Manasseh. So Reuven, Gad, and Manasseh represent those who want to be and should be at the first. They should be at the helm. They want to be there on the other side of the Jordan. And who else is on the other side of the Jordan? There's somebody very important who's on the other side of the Jordan who we always kind of forget about, who's staying on the other side of the Jordan until the future coming of Mashiach, when we'll have a resurrection. Who's there? Moshe. Moshe is buried on the other side of the Jordan. It says they wanted to be with him. They wanted to be in his land. Even though we don't know where he is buried, we know he's buried in the plains of Moab. That's over on the other side. They wanted to be with Moshe. What does that mean when they said that they had Mikne Rav? Let's take a look at that again, the Mikne Rav that they said that they had. Back to page 911. Umikne Rav haya livnei Reuven. Page 911, chapter 32, verse 1. Mikne Rav, they had an abundant livestock. It says, that's the surface of the story. What is Mikne Rav? It says it's from the word Mikne, is also related to the word of kinyan. A kinyan is an acquisition. Like I have an acquisition. I have something that I possess. What is Rav? It means a lot, but when else do we use the word Rav? Rav also means rabbi. In Hebrew, it's like, who is your Rav? Who is your rabbi? They had a kinyan Rav. What does that mean? A kinyan Rav says that they had a possession of their teacher, Moshe Rabbeinu. They wanted to be in the area where he was. And Moshe himself responds to that in the blessing to God and to Reuven, that he says, let's see, hold on 1 second. That's not right. In the end of his life, that he says, I'm sorry. No, that's not right. I apologize. I didn't write down the page. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I did. No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I apologize. That at the end in the Zot HaBracha, in the message about them, he says, let's find it. That's going to make me crazy. Hold on a second. Let's find it. In the Zot HaBracha, when he makes a blessing to them, whoever finds it first gets the prize. I don't know what it'll be. And this is the blessing. Let's look at it for, how did I not write this down? It's either for God or for, yes. Page 1119. Page 1119. This is in V'zot HaBracha. Talk about a parsha we usually don't pay attention to at all, because guess when it's read? It's read on Simchas Torah. And Simchas Torah, everybody's so distracted they're not even paying attention. So when it says of God, chapter 33, verse 20, of God, he said, blessed is he who broadens God. What does that mean? Who broadens him, who broadens his land, that he chose to have his land, the land extended. He dwells like a lion, tearing off arm and even head. He chose the first portion for himself. What's the first portion? The top three. The top three sfirot, the land that will come in the end, but he chose it first for himself. And then it's, what does he specifically say? In case we thought, well, that sounds like a stretch to say that the Mikne Rav is a hint to the kinyan of my acquisition of my rabbi. But this is Moshe himself saying it. For what are the next words? For that is where the lawgiver's plot is hidden. That's where the lawgiver, Moshe Rabbeinu, is our lawgiver. That's where his plot, that's where his burial plot is hidden, in the land that God chose. He came at the head of the nation, carrying out Hashem's justice and his ordinances with Israel. Moshe is praising. So before, it's like, how come before Moshe is freaking out that he's choosing this and getting upset? And now at the end, Moshe is praising him, saying, he chose the first land, the first lands that will be at the top, because that's where the lawgiver, me, Moshe, that's where my burial plot is, and he wanted to be there. Because Moshe is ultimately associated with the coming of Mashiach. We always think about, as it's true, that the Mashiach will be a descendant of King David. But the neshama of the Mashiach is a composite. It is a composite and includes Moshe's neshama as well. And of course, how could it not? Moshe as the first redeemer of the Jewish people, how could it not be that the final redeemer of the Jewish people would also include his neshama? The neshama, and I just learned more about this week, there's not a one-for-one correspondence. Oh, this is my neshama. You can have just like my DNA. I have my father's nose, my mother's, whatever, and my aunt's, my grandma Julie's eyes and whatever. It's like we are a composite at the physical level as well as at the spiritual level. And different parts of us are more, pronounced. And somebody might see some aspect of our physical self may be more dominant. And the same thing with our neshama. So of course, the neshama of the Mashiach, who is a person, would carry part of the neshama of Moshe as well. And Reuven, Gad, and Menashe were like, we want to be in that land. We want to be in that part. We know it's supposed to come second, but we already have the flocks, which are so clearly meant to be in this land. And that tells us that this is the right thing, which is why Moshe agrees to it. It's fascinating to think about that all of this part about, it's just about the journeys and it's about Zalach's daughters and about the inheritance and it's about, Reuven and Gad, they want to be someplace where there's, Texas and there's a lot of ground and I can pasture my grass. It's there's so much going on here at all of these different levels. And when we take the opportunity to see what's happening beneath. So I was thinking about this. Sometimes people think, that's just the commentary. And, isn't it just like the story, just like on top? It's why are you going into all of it? It's just straight information. It's nothing is straight information. If I had a conversation with you, let's say I said to you, I don't want to go to the wedding. That's the pshat. That's the statement. I don't want to go to the wedding. And you're like, okay, she doesn't want to go to the wedding. Anybody have a question? Why don't you want to go? Now, it's not made, I'm going to make up something. It's not made up. There's a reason. There might be more than one reason. Well, because the person getting married, the groom, I used to go out with him, and so it makes me uncomfortable. And so I don't really want to go to that wedding. It's okay. And also the girl he married is someone who was my roommate, and I don't really like her so much either. So there are 100 levels, or it could be, I feel in fear. There are many reasons why people do things and say things to say, well, she just said she didn't want to go. So that's the story. There's nothing that's like that. Not even a child says something that is just the plain words that are on the page. To think that is actually, I don't know what that would be called. I won't call it irresponsible, but you would certainly say you've got to be kidding. How could you not look and see what is beneath the surface and what's going on and what's tying this together, and how out of all the things that have been written, this has been preserved for thousands and thousands of years because it has something to teach us. And things are being communicated to us on multiple levels. So whenever something looks, especially when something looks like it's just dry information, the more it looks like nothing, the more it's something. The more it looks like nothing, the more it's something. And yet all of it is something. So here's just following just this one line of, there were 42 paths. It's really 42 steps along the way? Actually, there were 49, 7 were repeated. And you sing about it, even though some of them are really negative about things the Jewish people did wrong. And why is Moshe telling the people this? To tell something to us. Otherwise, we don't need to know where they went. You remember the days when you would get a triptych when you went on a vacation? What, you're flipping through the triptych to tell me where I went? Why do I need to know that? So it's for our benefit for us to understand our own lives. So when we see that these things are going on and realizing that we are part of something much bigger that is going on, that there is a time when we're in the world of 7 and then the time when we'll be in the world of three, and the whole thing will be connected together. So as sad as this time is, and as difficult and as restrained and constrained as it is to the other side, how much joy there will be. So it says, those who mourn for Jerusalem are the ones who will celebrate. It's not like, well, if you don't mourn, you're not celebrating. You can't. Until you understand what is actually happening, you won't be able to understand the rest of the story either. So it's almost as if the pain and the sorrow and the difficulty and challenge, and we're not supposed to be like, oh no, I'm fine. We're supposed to be feeling the pain of it. We're supposed to be feeling the constriction, the narrowness. We're supposed to feel it, because the more we can help ourselves feel it, the more it will rebound. It's kind of like winding a top, like when you wind a top and then let it go. It's like if you don't wind it up, it can't go. So we're supposed to constrict and constrict and constrict. And then when it explodes into joyful celebration, it'll be that much more so. So these parshas are always read during the 3 weeks because of the hints that they have to what is going to ultimately come. Because at the same time that we have the difficulty, if we do not have in our mind at the same time that this will eventually turn into something joyful, we will fall into a place of despair. So we have to have both things together. I have to be able to sing about the journey. I have to know that first it's going to be 7 and then 3, but it's going to come. And I need to know that having this place of Bina to be at the 50th level, that the 49 is always going to lead to 50. That 42 can never be just like I was 42. It's like, no, it wasn't 42, it was 49. And 49 always leads to 50. And so we're going to get there. God willing, we'll get there even before this Tisha B'Av. And we will already have a simcha, and we'll already be having Yantif, and we'll already be celebrating. We'll already be with Reuven and Gad and Chetzi Menashe, and we will be able to greet Mashiach. We'll see Moshe over there resurrected, and he'll be coming first, joining along with Mashiach, and they will come. Eliyahu Hanavi will come. The whole group will come. We'll be like, I knew it. So there's one of the questions that says that we will be asked after we pass from this world. It says, did you anticipate the coming of Mashiach? So what does that mean? Did you pack your bags? Are you ready to go? It says, anticipate means that even when I am in the depths of the difficulty, I know that the end game is that there will be the redemption. Even if I personally, by definition, if this question is asked of us after we leave this world, by definition, I did not live to see it. I didn't live to see it. And yet, I still anticipate it and trust it and know that it's going to come. And a life that is lived with that anticipation is a different life. And God willing, we'll all participate in the Techiyat HaMetim, in the resurrection of the dead. And then we can say, I knew it was all going to be fine, and that we would all be reunited together. The first ones that get to come are the people who are leaders. Reuven, Gad, Chetzi Menashe, Moshe, coming from the other side of the Jordan to the land of Israel. And again, don't tell the United Nations, but really all of this land is going to be ours, and it will all be under the influence of the Jewish people, which will spread out to the entire world, not in domination, but hopefully in transformation. And we will see all of humanity united in the service and the recognition of Hashem and service of humanity through the values and the laws of Torah. The laws that are for the non-Jews and the laws that are for the Jewish people, because they're not going to become Jewish. They're not supposed to. So God willing, the world will reach that place of transformation. And just when we think it is at the depths is where we know that things can go up. God willing, that will happen soon, like right now in our time. So thank you very much for, yes, Etta, I didn't hear, I'm sorry.
Just said amen.
Oh,
Thank you so
amen.
much for that encouragement. It's a dark time.
Amen. Thank you.
Ellyn,
Amen. The done deal.
Ellyn,
Yes,
Ellyn,
Rhoda.
we're coming to Israel for Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, how wonderful. That's great.
We're excited.
Very, very nice. Wonderful.
I can't imagine what it's like there on Rosh Hashanah.
We've been here one time for Rosh Hashanah and it was really wonderful. We were at the yeshiva with our son. It's really beautiful.
I'm excited.
Far is good. What's nice is that the whole country is celebrating and it just makes it very meaningful. I mean, even today I was talking to the person who's doing some contracting work here, just finishing things up, and he's going to come on Sunday. He said, so I won't be able to come tomorrow, so I'll see you on Sunday. So Shabbat Shalom. I'm like, Shabbat Shalom. So I'm not sure when the last time your contractor said that, but it's really nice to hear. Yes, somebody else had a question or a comment. Janice, do you want to unmute? And
yes, hi. So fascinating. Do we know, does it tie in the daughters of the Lafas and to which side they went with the tribe of Menashe?
oh, that's a really good question. So I don't know that, and I'm guessing that they went in actually, but I don't know that. And it says that part of the constraint on them is they had to marry members of the tribe of Menashe, because the family cannot lose their part of the inheritance. If they would have married men from other tribes, they could not have kept their land, because that they would have gone to their husbands. So it has to stay intact. So part of the deal was you have to marry someone from the tribe of Menashe. Now, there were hundreds of thousands of people, and it says actually in the end they married cousins. But they waited to get married. It says that they waited. One of them was 40, one was whatever the ages they were, that they waited until this got clarified by Moshe. They didn't bring it up earlier. They didn't bring it up until right at the end when they were getting ready to go into the land of Israel. But they waited to get married to people who were worthy of them, for which they are held in high regard. And they all marry people from the tribe of Menashe. And this is me, Ellyn Hutt, saying this. I have no way of knowing this, that they went into the land of Israel after all that. Okay, ladies, thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure. Yes, Renee, do you have a question?
It's kind of more like a comment. I'm sorry, my computer again. So, I'm so sorry. Okay, so it's kind of like,
Let's see,
now
Renee,
that I know that.
Renee, I'm sorry. I'm going to, you're,
I'm going to get off of one.
okay. I took you off of one. Okay. But now you're muted. Okay, sorry. So unmute yours. Okay, go ahead.
So I feel like, okay, so now, I have to like, I forgot the word, but I have to like grow with maybe my past neshamas, how we forgive people from past transmigrations. We talked about that before.
Yes.
So now you're telling me I have more than one neshama that I have to deal with? And
Yes, but that's okay. Don't worry about it, because it's like saying I have more than, I have more people who I've inherited my physical features with. The idea is that you're put together as a person, and hopefully those parts all work together. That's really a conversation for a different time. So I wouldn't worry about who those things all are, just to know that we have composite influences. And just like on Shabbos, this is also what I learned, is on Shabbos, when you get a neshama yetera, an extra soul, what is that? It's like we get an extra something, an extra spiritual connection. So it's like if you were, if something was grafted onto you, let's say you were grafted with this or that, and the other thing, but then it's all has one blood supply and it's all functioning as a whole. You don't function as like a disjointed whatever. It just means that we have multiple strands that could be flowing into us just the same way we have of our physical. And we know physically, like when people are meeting me and my sisters and I do not look anything alike. We like all the same food, and I think we talk alike, but we do not. Everyone's like, your sisters. So, but each of us looks like one of our parents, but we don't look like each other. So like, how does that happen? It's like, because different features are dominant. So similarly with the neshama, you do not have to parse it out. You don't have to send away for a 23andMe and find out like, whose neshama do I have? Do not even go in that direction. You have whatever the neshama package is for Renee, you have that, and Hashem is giving you exactly what you need.
Thank you.
But don't worry.
Thank
Don't
you.
worry. Okay.
Thank
All
you
right,
for a
ladies.
beautiful class.
Thank you for joining me. It's so nice to see all of you, and have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos. And it should really be a Shabbat Chazak. It should really, God willing, be a Shabbos of strength for all of us, because you know what? As I said in my thing, journeys are challenging. You know, it's not for the faint of heart to go through the journey of life and living. So our goal is to do it, and to do it with grace and courage and a sense of humor. And if ever the Jewish people can sing, and Moshe could sing about everything the Jewish people did, and we know that he wasn't happy with them at many places along the way, and yet he's singing the song about what the journey has been, that we certainly can too.
Ellyn, would you send me the recording? I joined late.
Sure. So I can't send it to you directly, but I can tell you after Deb is going to post it on the Jewish Experience. Go to, people are having trouble finding it on, not finding it, but accessing it on my website because it's requiring a password, which I don't understand. But I'm going to send it to the recording. I have to wait to get it from Zoom, and then I will upload it. So Deb Flomberg, when I find out that it is uploaded, I will let you know, Rhoda, and this is where you should go. Go to theje.com//
Oh,
Ellyn, Ellyn. When you get there, you can scroll down a little bit and you'll see most recent recording here. It'll be like a picture of me or something. And then just push on it and that will be the recording. But it takes Deb a little bit. I have to wait till I get it from Zoom, and then Deb will get it, and then you can hear the recording.
would it be like tomorrow?
For sure by tomorrow.
Okay, Toda.
Toda Rabah. Thank you. All right,
Ellyn,
ladies. So nice to see you.
Thank you.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
for helping us with our journey.
Oh, thank you for helping me. It's definitely something that requires a group effort. Just knowing that other people are on a journey, and that, let's put it this way, no one's not on a journey. Just some people are more aware of the fact that they're on it than others. But there's nobody's life that isn't a journey. As I said, that does not exist. I mean, it just doesn't exist, which is like, seriously. But other than it's like, great, that's good news. I'm not alone in this. So our journeys are different, but all of them include challenges. All of them include pits along the way, and all of them hopefully include high points as well. But they're all meant to be growing. There's nobody's journey where it's like, you know, that's called not alive. If there's nothing to do on your journey, then you're not in this world. Then you are in the next world. That's where you go when you're done with your journey. So we don't really want to be done yet. So I'm just done. It's like, no, don't say that. You don't want to be done, because there's a special place for people who are done. And it's called a cemetery. So we don't really want to be there prematurely. So the only other choice is on the journey.
Can I ask a
Thank you.
question that's a bit off topic, but it has to do with the 3 weeks?
Sure.
So we have several family members who have birthdays during the 3 weeks. I'm
Yes.
just wondering, you know, because there is this heaviness that you feel.
Yes.
It's like,
Exactly.
is there any thing we should know about celebrating or
Yeah.
whatever?
Yes. So no live music. No live music, basically. And it shouldn't be, that's the main thing, is no live music. That's probably the thing that would impact most, and people don't get married. So it's interesting. I just read today that if people got married right before the 17th of Tammuz, and so they were during their period of Sheva Brachot, the 7 days, do you still have Sheva Brachot? And the answer is yes. You still have them. That kind of trumps the 3 weeks, but you don't have live music. So it's kind of funny. Or dancing, it says you can kind of shuffle dance, you know, like how guys tend to like shuffle dance, but don't like go all out. So it's
Or
just,
meat. Or
I'm sorry.
meat. Can you have meat?
Have meat. Yes, you can. For Sheva Brachos, you can. It's a Sudat mitzvah. But birthday, no, that's not a mitzvah to have a birthday celebration. So, well, I shouldn't say that. Of course, you can have meat during the 3 weeks. It's only during the 9 days that you can't have meat,
Oh, okay.
except on Shabbos, and then you have meat. So you can do that, or if you're making a siyum. So, yeah, so that is, and you wouldn't be having that, you would not be having that, you would not be having Sheva Brachos during the 9 days because you couldn't have gotten married during the 3 weeks. So you would have been outside your 7-day, you would have been way outside your 7 days of celebrating. So, but if you got married, let's say on the 16th of Tammuz, then you would be within your 3 weeks, and you would have meat, you'd have wine, all of that, but you wouldn't have live music for dance, and you would shuffle dance. So, but that's it. But yeah, it's kind of like, it's just a little bit toned down, kind of like when you feel a little, you should feel a little pressured. That's appropriate. Now, some people think like you shouldn't, in the American culture, you should always be feeling fine. There must be a medicine for this or something, like cheer up. It's like, no, you don't need to cheer up. You should feel it. But you can still
How
have a
about
birthday.
traveling? How about traveling?
You can
Can
travel.
you travel in the 9
Yeah.
days?
During the 9 days, people tend not to travel unless it's for a really good reason. And then you consult your rabbi.
Okay.
And it depends on what
Can
the
I-
travel is for. It depends what it's for, where you're going and why. So like
Okay.
our kids, when they came to Denver in the summer, they traveled during the 9 days. But the rabbi said, you're going to visit your parents. That's kibbud av ve'em. That's honoring your parents. And, you're not going to bathe them, whatever. You're going, you're not going on a cruise. You're going to visit your parents. Yes.
Right.
Someone said, does that mean it's not so fun? And it's like, which would, you're not having that much fun. You're going to visit your parents. Like there's a mitzvah in there. So that's why it's okay.
Can I mention something else really quick?
Yes, one more thing, and then I'm going to go and have dinner since it's
Oh my
10
gosh, I forgot your time frame. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, for the 9th of Av, when I was
Yes.
when I was at services, this is not to guilt trip you, but I have to tell you, I really missed you. I was the only woman. And for Mincha and Marav, and
on the 17th of Tammuz, you mean?
yeah, well, no, was it when we fasted?
Yeah, 17th of Tammuz. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Sorry
Oh,
about that. I was
thank
confused.
you.
And then I missed you because you're always so generous and kind, and you would like kind of notice me, and if I was flipping through the pages, you would help me and tell me where we were, and
Thank you.
so I really needed you.
Thank
But
you.
anyway,
That makes me happy sad. Thank you. Thank you.
Yasher koach, Ellyn. It took me a while to unmute. I couldn't find where to do it. I don't know why it disappeared. Yasher koach was fantastic.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to have you. And I'm sorry I need to bid you good night, but I am going to
Yes.
enjoy
go.
dinner. Hi to
Feed
Steve.
So
I will. I'm going to go have some dinner before it's time to go to sleep.
I'll email you. Bye.
Okay, please do, Gabi. I wanted to
Thank
hear.
you,
how
Ellyn.
it's going.
Sure.
Okay, thank you,
I
everybody.
will.
Bye, Liz.
Bye, everyone.
Nice to see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Shabbat tov. Bye-bye.